Max Verstappen's season has gone from bad to worse so far, and the four-time world champion issued a statement that sent shockwaves throughout the entire F1 world. The Dutchman is much closer to retiring than usual now that Red Bull has seemingly bottled the 2026 regulations, and after the Shanghai GP, this scenario seems a lot more realistic. Have we seen everything from Max? And if so, who is to be blamed more? Red Bull for failing the regulations or the sport for moving in this direction? There is no other way around it. Max Verstappen's 2026 season has been utterly disappointing. After a P20 start in Australia and a salvaging race to climb to P6, Verstappen was set for yet another midfield finish in Shanghai until his engine decided to give up. As we speak, Verstappen's stance on the 2026 cars is clear. It's just not what he prefers, and his team failed to get on top of it. Therefore, the painful topic of Verstappen retiring has been mentioned yet again, and the four-time world champion has spoken about it openly. Before we go into the retirement topic, let's talk about what could have been for Max Verstappen. Let's not forget that throughout the entirety of 2025, he was openly in talks with Mercedes regarding taking Russell's place. Of course, Toto Wolff assured us that such a thing won't happen, but we've seen them on the yacht way too many times to not doubt anything, and one thing is for sure, Verstappen and his father Jos were in talks with Mercedes. From this point of view, I think he's regretting the decision to trust Red Bull and Ford with the new regulations. And with no other team offering a seat anywhere soon, the only way for Max to stop this misery is to retire. I know it sounds painful, but it's not something that hasn't crossed Max's mind. As I mentioned earlier in this video, he's spoken about it openly and said that he's much more intimidated by GT3 racing rather than these newly regulated cars in F1. Elaborating further on this, Max said, "I don't want to leave F1. I wish I had a bit more time and a bit more fun for sure, but I am also doing other stuff that is a lot of fun. I get to race at the Nordschleife. What I hope in the coming years I can do Spa and Le Mans, so I'm combining stuff to find other stuff that I find really fun as well. Of course, my team, so I have a lot of distractions at the same time, positive distractions I would call it. I do enjoy working with all of the people in Red Bull, so no, I don't want to leave, but I also hope, of course, that it gets better, and I know I've had discussions with F1 and the FIA, and I think they are working towards something, and hopefully that will improve everything. And we need to talk about Max's opinion on the 2026 regulations as well. He said loud and clear that he doesn't enjoy them, and they are very inconsistent as he fails to build a reference through qualifying. And Max pointed out that he can go either 4/10 slower or faster, and that's literally something that's hanging in the air, primarily because the car is all over the place and it's incredibly difficult to drive. But even if Max and Red Bull manage to find a pace all of a sudden, we need to be realistic. Where would that put them in the pecking order? We know for a fact that Verstappen is a beast and he doesn't need the fastest car to be up there at the front. He's proven that in 2024 and partially in 2025. But this generation is different. It's not that much about the driver rather than the battery and the ICE combination, and I'm afraid Max is powerless here. Max Verstappen's verdict on the car's behavior throughout the sprint race in China says a lot as well. We know that he loves to be critique-oriented, but the details that he shared lately are quite concerning if you ask us. When talking about what he went through just to finish P9 and outside of the points, Max said, "The car is incredibly tough to drive. There's no balance. I cannot lean on the car. Every lap is a fight. It's just very difficult. Every time I did another lap on a tire set, it felt awful. In the past, sometimes we threw the car upside down and it worked. Now nothing works. It's just not nice. I cannot push. Every lap is a survival for me." Furthermore, Red Bull doesn't even seem to be in the top 3 teams regarding the 2026 season, even with 2 McLarens out of the race. Verstappen barely salvaged a P6 position, which was also put in danger by Gasly in the finishing stages of the race before his retirement. If you ask a 4-time world champion whether he enjoys running behind a Haas and fighting with an Alpine in order to secure points in the midfield, I don't think you'll receive a positive comment. Again, the 2 McLarens were out. so I doubt Verstappen would have been running so high had it been for Piastri and Norris. Be that as it may, the future of the Dutchman is hanging in the air, and Red Bull needs to be very careful now that the stakes have been higher than ever. And when it comes to GT3, the championship that Max would love to join if he decides to drop out of F1, it seems like he's a lot keener to join than we could possibly imagine. This is primarily because of the environment surrounding the racing clubs. As he went on to elaborate, GT3 is a bit of a different environment than F1 in the paddock, I would say. I'm probably a little bit more old school and less political, which I probably enjoy a bit more. I can probably be a bit more myself, so yeah, that is what I enjoy. Plus, of course, these races, like all the big endurance ones, I want to do them. It's something that when I was a kid as well, my dad was doing. That's not all. Max Verstappen hinted at his age as a huge factor too, saying that he doesn't want to join the 24 hours of Le Mans and the 24 hours of Spa when he's 40. Max stated loud and clear that he is in the perfect age to do these races now. But again, we need to have a proper look at Red Bull and see what the Austrian team holds in their hands in terms of potential to keep Max Verstappen at bay. In Australia, it was Hajar's engine that blew up, and here in China, Verstappen had the bad luck to not finish the race because of an engine issue. Even if the car performs at the highest level, that level itself seems enough to finish in the midfield at its best. The race start seems to be a big challenge for Max, who dropped tons of positions in Shanghai because of a wheel spin. And now Red Bull seems to be very far away from the performance of Mercedes and Ferrari. The behavior of Max during the Chinese GP weekend was studied by Bernie Collins, a Sky F1 pundit, as she went on to say Max was really unhappy through the whole session, complaining about downshifts, which we have heard a lot in the past. There seemed to be fundamentally a lot more issues with the car. Even on his outlap in SQ3, he said, Yoda, is there anything I can do to improve this? And he was basically told, no. It doesn't sound like there are any quick fixes. If you remember correctly, Max was constantly complaining about these downshift issues throughout the previous years. But then the car had a better overall package, and it was able to compensate for these problems. Now that the engine and the aerodynamic package seem to be way off, those downshifts seem like a massive issue to tackle. And when you add the fact that there is a new engine that the drivers need to get used to, the problem gets deepened. And that's precisely why Jacques Villeneuve believes that Max and Red Bull are too far from competing for race wins or podiums, and a change could be on the cards sooner rather than later. Adding to this, the 1997 world champion said, last year, Max knew he had a car where he could maybe bring a battle during the season. Now it looks like the gap is way too big. When you're harvesting energy, you need a car that is very stable. If you get a bit sideways, you get off and on the gas, it's not good for the energy, and maybe that's what he's alluding to. With all this in mind, do you think that Max Verstappen will change the racing environment and join another competition? And more importantly, if he does, who do you put the blame on more? The